Oh, folks, buckle up, because today on Boss Economics World, we're diving headfirst into the absolute circus that is the US economy in 2025. You heard it right, circus. We've got Federal Reserve policymakers tap dancing around interest rates, tariffs threatening to choke the life out of global trade, and a government that seems hell-bent on driving this economy straight into the gutter. And guess what? The Fed's latest parade of speeches proves one thing: they're more clueless than a goldfish in a calculus class. So, grab your popcorn, because we're about to rip apart this economic mess, layer by layer, and expose the government mismanagement that's got us teetering on the edge of a full-blown recession. Let's go. First up, let's talk about the Federal Reserve's latest act of economic cowardice. On Friday, May 9, 2025, a whole gaggle of Fed policymakers took the stage to deliver their carefully rehearsed lines, and what did they tell us? Absolutely nothing. Not a single one of them even hinted at lowering interest rates. Instead, we got Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack serving up this gem: I am usually inclined to take action, but in this case, taking no action may be the best choice. Oh, really, Beth? Doing nothing is the best choice when inflation is still gnawing at our wallets, the labor market is slowing to a crawl, and businesses are drowning under the weight of uncertainty? Give me a break. Let's unpack this, folks. The Fed's benchmark interest rate has been stuck in the 4.75% to 5% range since late 2023, according to the latest data from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. That's right, almost 2 years of sky-high borrowing costs, and what do we have to show for it? Inflation, which the Fed swore it would tame, is still hovering at 3.2% as of April 2025, well above their sacred 2% target. Meanwhile, the labor market is flashing red warning signs. The unemployment rate ticked up to 4.6% in April 2025, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and job growth has slowed to a measly 120,000 jobs per month, barely enough to keep up with population growth. And yet, the Fed's response is crickets. Hammack even had the audacity to say they need more time to evaluate the effects of tariffs and other government policies. Oh, come on. Tariffs have been wreaking havoc on global supply chains since the Trump administration doubled down on its protectionist agenda in early 2025, slapping 25% tariffs on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods, according to the U.S. Trade Representative. The result? A 15% spike in input costs for U.S. manufacturers, per a recent National Association of Manufacturers report, and a 7% drop in U.S. exports in Q1 2025, per the U.S. Census Bureau. But sure, Beth, take your sweet time evaluating. Meanwhile, small businesses are going bankrupt, and consumers are getting crushed by higher prices. This isn't leadership, it's paralysis. Now, let's zoom out and talk about the elephant in the room: the government's obsession with tariffs. The Trump administration, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that the best way to protect the U.S. economy is to slap punitive tariffs on everyone and their dog. And what's the Fed's response? A collective shrug. Fed Chair Jerome Powell and his merry band of policymakers keep saying, well, the effects of tariffs might be short-lived. Short-lived? Tell that to the 1.2 million manufacturing jobs that have vanished since 2023, per the Economic Policy Institute, or the 20% of small businesses that have shuttered due to rising costs, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And don't even get me started on the ripple effects. Fed Governor Lisa Cook, speaking at the Stanford Hoover Institution, warned that these tariffs could drag down productivity by reducing business investment and disrupting supply chains. She's not wrong. A 2025 study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics found that U.S. business investment has plummeted by 18% since the tariff wars escalated, as companies hoard cash instead of expanding operations. Why? Because no one knows if the next tariff hike is around the corner. Cook even pointed out that protectionist policies could prop up inefficient firms. Yep, we're talking corporate welfare for zombie companies that should have gone bust years ago. Meanwhile, efficient firms are getting crushed by higher costs and supply chain chaos. This isn't America first, it's America last. But wait, there's more. Cook also warned that lower productivity could fuel inflationary pressures, forcing the Fed to keep rates higher for longer. And guess who gets hurt the most? You, the average American, who's already struggling to pay $4.50 for a gallon of gas, up 30% since 2023, per the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and $6 for a loaf of bread, up 25%, per the Consumer Price Index. This is what happens when you let politicians play economic mad scientist. Everyone else gets stuck cleaning up the mess. Now, let's pivot to the Fed's favorite buzzword of the week: inflation expectations. Oh, they were all over this one. New York Fed President John Williams called well-anchored inflation expectations the bedrock of modern central banking. Fed Governors Adriana Kugler and Lisa Cook echoed the same talking points, stressing the importance of keeping the public's expectations for future price increases in check. Gee, guys, maybe if you actually did your job and brought inflation under control, we wouldn't have to worry about expectations spiraling out of control. Here's the reality, folks, inflation expectations are already unmoored. According to the University of Michigan's latest survey of consumers, long-term inflation expectations hit 3.5% in April 2025, the highest level since 2011. Why? Because people aren't stupid. They see the Fed sitting on its hands, they see the government throwing tariff Molotov cocktails into the economy, and they see prices rising with no end in sight. And when expectations rise, guess what happens? Businesses jack up prices even faster, workers demand bigger wage hikes, and you get a vicious inflationary spiral. But hey, at least the Fed's got its bedrock talking points, right? Oh, but don't worry, folks, Lisa Cook has a silver lining for us. In her Stanford speech, she dangled the promise of artificial intelligence, AI, as a potential savior, saying it could boost U.S. productivity and counteract the negative effects of trade policy. Really, Lisa? AI is going to save us from the government's economic vandalism? This is the equivalent of saying, sure, your house is on fire, but don't worry, self-driving fire trucks are coming, someday. Let's be real, AI has huge potential, but it's not a magic wand. Yes, McKinsey's 2024 Global AI Report estimates that AI could add $4.4 trillion to the global economy annually by 2030, but here's the catch, those gains depend on massive investments in infrastructure, education, and workforce retraining. And where's that investment coming from when businesses are too scared to spend thanks to tariff uncertainty? Not to mention, AI adoption is already lagging in the US compared to China, where government subsidies have fueled a 35% annual growth in AI patents, per the World Intellectual Property Organization. Meanwhile, US AI investment grew by just 12% in 2024, per CB Insights. So, forgive me if I'm not holding my breath for Cook's AI miracle to save us from this economic dumpster fire. Here's the bottom line, folks, all of this, the Fed's inaction, the government's tariff madness, the productivity slump, points to one thing, a recession is coming, and it's going to hit hard. The Conference Board's leading economic index has been flashing warning signs for 6 straight months, with a 0.7% decline in April 2025 alone. Consumer confidence, per the Conference Board, is at its lowest level since the 2020 pandemic. And let's not forget the yield curve, which inverted again in March 2025, per the US Treasury, a classic recession predictor that's been right more often than not. But what's the government doing about it? Nothing. Instead, we've got President Trump raging on social media, calling Fed Chair Jerome Powell a fool for not slashing rates. Look, I'm no fan of Powell's dithering, but Trump's the one who lit this fuse with his tariff tantrums. And Congress? They're too busy playing partisan ping-pong to pass a stimulus package or fix the supply chain mess. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what government mismanagement looks like, a perfect storm of incompetence that's dragging our economy to the brink. So, what's the takeaway, folks? The Fed's too scared to act, the government's too reckless to care, and the rest of us are left holding the bag. If we want to avoid a recession, or at least soften the blow, we need real leadership, not this clown show. The Fed needs to wake up and start cutting rates, yesterday. The government needs to ditch the tariff lunacy and start investing in productivity-boosting infrastructure, like 5G networks and green energy, which could create 3 million jobs by 2030, per the American Jobs Plan. And businesses? They need certainty, not chaos, to start investing again. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel, trying to make sense of this economic car crash. So, tell me, viewers, what do you think? Are we doomed to a recession, or is there a way out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that like button if you're as fed up with this nonsense as I am. Until next time, this is Boss Economics World, where we call out the clowns and fight for an economy that works for everyone. Peace out.